Now let's rewind and tell the story from the beginning. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but especially by her grandmother. Her grandmother loved her so much that she would give the little girl anything she wanted. Once she gave her a small red velvet hat, and because it suited her so well, the girl never wanted to wear anything else. So everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Riding Hood, here is a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is sick and weak, and these will make her feel better. Go before it gets hot, walk nicely and quietly, and don't stray from the path. Otherwise, you might fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. And when you go into her room, don't forget to say, 'Good morning,' and don't look around in every corner before you do so." "I will be very careful," said Little Red Riding Hood to her mother, and she gave her hand. Grandmother lived in the forest, half a league away from the village. As soon as Little Red Riding Hood entered the forest, she met a wolf. Little Red Riding Hood didn't know what a wicked animal he was, so she wasn't afraid of him. "Good day, Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf. "Thank you, wolf." "Where are you going so early, Little Red Riding Hood?" "To my grandmother's." "And what do you have in your apron?" "Cake and wine. Yesterday was baking day, so I'm bringing something good to my poor sick grandmother to help her feel strong again." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?" "A good quarter of a league further into the forest under the 3 big oak trees. Her house stands beneath them. You must know it," said Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf thought to himself, "What a tender young creature. She will be even tastier than the old woman. I must act cleverly so that I can catch both of them." So the wolf walked for a little while beside Little Red Riding Hood. Then he said, "Look, Little Red Riding Hood, how pretty the flowers are around here. Why don't you look around? And I don't think you hear how sweetly the birds are singing. You walk along as if you are going to school, yet it is so delightful here in the forest." Little Red Riding Hood lifted her eyes and saw the sunbeams dancing here and there through the trees, and pretty flowers were blooming everywhere. She thought, "If I take some flowers to my grandmother, she will be very pleased. It is still early, so I will arrive on time." So she ran off the path into the forest to look for flowers. Whenever she picked one, she saw an even prettier one further on and ran after it, and so she went deeper and deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. "Who is there?" "Little Red Riding Hood," replied the wolf. "I have brought cake and wine. Open the door." "Lift the latch," called out the grandmother. "I am too weak and cannot get up." The wolf lifted the latch, the door opened, and without saying a word, he went straight to the grandmother's bed and ate her up. Then he put on her clothes, dressed himself in her cap, laid himself in bed, and drew the curtains. Little Red Riding Hood, however, had been running about picking flowers, and when she had gathered so many that she could carry no more, she remembered her grandmother and set out on her way. She was surprised to find the door of the house standing open, and when she entered the room, she felt very strange and thought to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today, and at other times I like being with grandmother so much." She called out, "Good morning," but received no answer, so she went to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay her grandmother with her cap pulled far over her face, looking very strange. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have." "The better to hear you with, my child," was the reply. "But grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "The better to see you with, my dear." "But grandmother, what big hands you have. The better to hug you with." "Oh, but grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have. The better to eat you with." Scarcely had the wolf said this than he jumped out of bed and swallowed up poor Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf, having satisfied his appetite, lay down again in bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very loudly. The huntsman was just passing by the house and thought, "How loudly the old woman is snoring. I must check to see if something is wrong." He went into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw the wolf lying there. "So here you are, you old sinner," said the huntsman. "I have been looking for you for a long time." He was just about to fire his gun when he thought that the wolf might have eaten the grandmother and that she could still be saved. So, instead of shooting, He took a pair of scissors and began to cut open the wolf's stomach. After 2 cuts, he saw the Red Hood shining through. And after 2 more cuts, Little Red Riding Hood jumped out and cried, "Oh, how frightened I was! It was so dark inside the wolf." After that, the old grandmother came out alive too, but she could hardly breathe. Little Red Riding Hood quickly fetched some large stones and filled the wolf's belly with them. When the wolf woke up, he wanted to run away, but the stones were so heavy that he collapsed and died. The three were very happy. The huntsman took the wolf's skin. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine that Little Red Riding Hood had brought. And Little Red Riding Hood thought to herself, "As long as I live, I will never leave the path again when my mother has forbidden me to do so."